Later, that evening, Siana leaned against the cool marble of Peter's balcony, her coffee growing cold in her hands. The city buzzed beneath them, but her mind was miles away. "You've been quiet since we left his office," Peter said, joining her. "You okay?" She didn't answer right away. He turned down a merger. "Peter, Aldrich, for me." Peter stiffened slightly, then masked it with a half smile. "Well, that's new." "Yeah," she said softly, tracing the rim of her cup. "It doesn't feel real. It's like I'm waiting for the catch." Peter watched her carefully. "And if there isn't one?" She looked up startled. "What?" "If he really is trying, if he's not playing games, what then?" She swallowed hard. "Then I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of wanting it too much." Peter reached for her hand but didn't touch it. "You're allowed to want things, Sia. Even broken things. Just don't lose yourself in trying to fix them." Later that night, Audrey's penthouse's Siana hadn't planned to come. Her feet just brought her there. The security recognized her and let her in without question. The place was quiet, too quiet. She stepped inside, her eyes catching the warm glow from under the study door. He's not home, she realized. And yet, she was here. She moved toward the study. The door creaked open slowly. Aldrich's desk was littered with open files, a half-drunk glass of scotch, and a leather-bound notebook, unlike the business planners he usually carried. Curiosity won over reason. She opened it slowly. "I was 9 when she left. She said I was too serious for a boy, that my eyes reminded her of him. I didn't cry. I told Father she didn't matter. He called me a Leono that day, said I had the spine for business. I think that was the moment I lost whatever softness I had left." Siana's breath caught. "I didn't want a wife. I wanted a shield. I thought if I married someone with a good face, a kind voice, the board would leave me alone. I never expected the kindness to matter, but it did. God help me, it did." Siana closed the journal gently, her fingers trembling. She stepped back, heart thudding. She shouldn't have read it. And yet, she was glad she did. That hollow place inside Aldrich, it wasn't just ambition or ego. It was grief, abandonment, loneliness. She turned to leave, but the sound of the front door opening froze her in place. Aldrich stepped in, loosening his tie, looking startled to see her. "Siana?" Her eyes flicked to the study behind her. "I let myself in. I'm sorry." He didn't ask what she saw. He looked tired but not angry. "You weren't supposed to see that yet," he said softly. "So it's true," she whispered. "You built your walls from the inside." He took a step forward. "And I'm trying to tear them down, one brick at a time." Her lips parted, but the words caught. "I don't need you to. Forgive me yet," he continued. "But I need you to see that I'm not pretending anymore, not with you." A beat of silence passed. Finally, she said, "I saw the boy in that journal, Aldrich. I think I understand now why you're so afraid of love." He met her gaze. "And what about you?" he asked, voice low. "What are you afraid of?" She hesitated. "Of letting myself hope." They stood there, the silence heavy with possibilities. But neither moved, not forward, not back. Just a moment suspended in the quiet truce between them. The silence stretched. Aldrich watched her, waiting for a step forward, a word, anything. But Siana only shook her head gently. "Not yet," she whispered, brushing past him. His hand twitched as if he wanted to reach for her, but knew better. As she walked to the door, she paused without turning. "If you really want to show me you've changed, Aldrich, stop letting him pull your strings." His chest tightened. "My father," she nodded once. You're not going to win me back by turning down mergers or quoting regrets in empty rooms. Prove you're your own man, not his puppet. Then she was gone, the door clicking shut behind her. The next morning, Leono Group. Headquarters, Aldrich stood outside the executive boardroom, jaw clenched. The weight of decades of obedience sat heavy on his shoulders, but Siana's words echoed louder than fear. He stepped in. His father, Lionel Leono, was already seated at the head of the long obsidian table. Two of the board's senior advisors flanked him. Everyone went still. "You're late," his father snapped without looking up. "I was deciding whether this meeting was worth attending." That made Lionel look up, brows raised. "Excuse me?" Aldrich dropped a folder on the table. Documents, projections, the details of the merger he'd cancelled. "I came to make something clear. I'm not your shadow, father. I'm not your test subject. And I'm done making decisions to appease a legacy that was never mine to begin with." Lionel's expression didn't change, but the air in the room shifted. "You gave me power and then kept your hand on the leash," Aldrich continued. "The contract marriage, the conditions, the manipulation. I see it now, all of it." "You think you're above the game now?" Lionel asked coolly. "Because of some girl?" "No," Aldrich said, stepping closer, voice razor sharp. "Because I finally know the cost of playing it." He slid another document across the table. "My resignation from the board." That did shake Lionel. "You're bluffing." Aldrich leaned in, eyes hard. "No, I'll still run my division. I'll still build what I believe in. But I won't be your puppet. And I won't sacrifice what matters to me anymore. Not for you, not for appearances." There was silence. One of the advisors cleared his throat, but stayed quiet. Finally, Lionel leaned back in his chair, studying his son with something unreadable in his gaze. "So, this is the hill you've chosen to die on?" "No," Aldrich said. "This is the ground I've chosen to finally stand on." Later that day, Siana's apartment. She wasn't expecting him, so when she opened the door to find Aldrich standing there, something unreadable in his eyes, she froze. "I didn't think I'd see you today," she said softly. He held up a single folder. "I thought you should be the first to know." She opened it, her eyes widened. You stepped down?" He nodded. "You said I needed to stop letting him pull the strings," he said quietly. "So I cut the ones I could." Siana stared at the resignation letter, fingers trembling. "I'm not asking you to come back," he added. "Not yet. But I needed you to know this time. I chose you, not the company, not him." Her heart clenched. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say you'll think about letting me try." She looked up at him, still guarded, still unsure, but something in her eyes had softened. "I already am." Aldrich exhaled, slow, shaky. Not a victory, but hope, and for now, that was enough. Later that evening, Siana's apartment. The resignation letter lay untouched on her coffee table, but Siana couldn't stop looking at it. Every line, every signature, every official stamp was real. Aldrich had actually done it, not for a press stunt. Not to manipulate her, but for himself, and maybe a little for her too. She wrapped a blanket tighter around her shoulders and stared out the window. Her thoughts spiraled, tangled like smoke in the cold evening light. There was a knock. "Peter," she said as she opened the door, unsurprised. He held up a paper bag with takeout and a hopeful smile. "You looked like you needed something warm and full of calories." She let out a breathy laugh and stepped aside. "You're psychic." They settled on the couch, containers spread between them. For a while neither said anything, just the clink of chopsticks and the hum of the city through the glass. Then Peter glanced at the table. "So, that his?" She followed his gaze to the resignation letter. "Yeah." And she sighed. And I don't know. It changes things, but it doesn't fix them. Peter nodded. Because he's not just some CEO. He's your Aldrich, and that comes with a lot of baggage. I don't even know what that means anymore, she said, her voice low. Sometimes I see the man who ignored me, used me, treated me like a means to an end. And sometimes I see someone else, someone who's trying, who's scared, who's in love with you. Peter finished gently. She looked down. Maybe. But I don't know if I can trust that, or trust myself to believe. Peter set his food aside and turned to face her fully. Siana, you are the strongest woman I know, but even the strong get tired of being the one who bends, who forgives, who holds the line. Her eyes shimmered. And what if this time I want to bend, just a little? Peter smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Then I'll still be here, watching your back, making sure he deserves the second chance you're giving him. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Thank you. For what? For not making this harder than it already is. He chuckled softly. I'm tempted. Trust me. But I'd rather see you happy, even if it's not with me. Her breath caught at the quiet heartbreak in his voice, but she didn't press it. Some wounds didn't need salt, only space. The next morning, Leono Group Siana entered the office to find things different. Her name was now on the executive meeting schedule. A private assistant had been assigned to support her, not Aldrich. And the marketing pitch she'd been working on, the one Aldrich had shelved weeks ago, was suddenly at the top of today's agenda. She walked to Aldrich's office, brows furrowed. He looked up as she entered, setting down a pen. Morning. Yes, May. Greenlit the evergreen pitch. Yes. She crossed her arms. Why? Because it's smart, and because you believed in it when I didn't even give it a glance. That was a mistake. Siana blinked. You're admitting you were wrong. I'm trying something new, he said with a slight smirk. It's called being human. She gave a reluctant laugh. He stood, walking around to face her. You asked me to show you. I am, not just with grand gestures, but with the everyday ones too. The work, the choices, the respect. Siana looked at him, really looked, and for a moment the tension softened. She stepped closer. No more decisions about me without me, he nodded. Agreed. No more control disguised as care. Never again. She hesitated. And if I fall again, if I believe you and it breaks me, he stepped forward, not touching her, just close enough for her to feel the sincerity in his words. Then I'll be the one shattered. Because I swear to you, Siana, I won't fail you twice. Her breath caught. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel like she was drowning in his presence. She felt seen. Later that afternoon, Leono Group. HQ Siana was in the middle of presenting the Evergreen campaign when her phone buzzed with unusual urgency. A string of messages from Lily, then Peter, then even her sister. She quickly silenced it and continued. But when she glanced up, she saw Aldrich step into the back of the room, his face unusually grim. Something was wrong. After the meeting, he motioned for her to follow him. No words, just a look. Inside his office, he handed her a tablet. The screen displayed a headline from one of the top gossip blogs. Power couple or power play? Inside the shocking contract marriage between Aldrich, Leono and Siana Gomez, her stomach dropped. No, she whispered. No, no, no. How did this get out? Aldrich's jaw was locked, but his voice was low. Someone leaked it. Full details. The contract. The timelines. Even the clause about possible annulment at 1 year. She backed away from the desk, breath shaky. This ruins everything. I know, her voice cracked. My name's going to be dragged through every headline. Everyone will think I used you, that I married you for money, for power. Hey! He stepped forward, catching her shoulders. Look at me. That's not what happened. But it looks like it, and that's all the world needs. She shook him off and paced the room, spiraling. Do you know what they'll say? That I was nothing before you, that I'm just a pawn, and all the progress I've made here, it'll vanish. Aldrich's voice was steel now. Then let me fix it. You can't fix this with a press release, she snapped, tears brimming. This isn't a business glitch. This is my life. He stared at her silent for a long moment. Then he said quietly, Then let's make it true. She froze. What? The marriage. Let's make it real. Her heart stopped. You can't be serious. I am. His tone was calm, but his eyes were anything but. I know this is the worst timing. I know it sounds insane. But we were headed here anyway, weren't we? Her voice shook. Are you asking me to save face or to save us? To choose us, he said. Even if it started with a contract. What we've built, what we're starting to feel, that's real. She stared at him, torn between disbelief and the terrifying flutter of hope in her chest. I need time, she said, barely above a whisper. You have it, he said, stepping back to give her space. But Siana, whatever happens next, I'm with you. Not for business, not for optics, for you. An hour later, PR department chaos. Unfolding reporters were already outside the building. Social media was exploding with theories. Employees whispered in corners. A press conference loomed. Peter found her in the hallway. You okay? No, she said honestly. Everything's falling apart. Then let it, he said. And decide what you want to rebuild. She looked at him, surprised by the clarity in his words. That's simple, huh? Peter shrugged. It's never simple, but it is yours to choose. Just don't let the world make that choice for you. That evening, Leono Group press room. The room buzzed with tension. Reporters whispered, lenses clicked into place, and live streams ticked upward by the second. The leaked contract had set fire to every news outlet in the city, and tonight, Aldrich Leono was expected to speak. Siana stood backstage, hidden behind a curtain, heart pounding. She wasn't supposed to be here. No one knew she had come, not even Aldrich. But something compelled her, maybe curiosity, maybe fear, or maybe hope. A staff member whispered, We're live in 3, 2, 1. The lights flared. Aldrich stepped up to the podium, dark suit immaculate, expression calm but unreadable. He adjusted the mic. Good evening. A pause. I know why you're all here, so let me be clear. Cameras leaned forward. Yes, he said. Siana Gomez and I entered into a contract marriage. A wave of murmurs shot through the room. He let them murmur. But what the headlines won't tell you is what happened after the signatures. He glanced around the room, and for a second, Siana swore his eyes landed exactly where she stood in the shadows. She challenged me. She changed me. And somewhere between business dinners and board meetings, I realized something terrifying and liberating. I didn't just need her for appearances. I needed her, period. A gasp or two rippled through the audience. And if the world wants to know whether I love my wife, the answer is yes. Siana's breath caught. Her hands trembled. Yes, it started with papers. But it grew into something I never expected. Something real. And I don't care if that's messy or unconventional or hard to explain to shareholders. He paused again, voice softening. What matters is that the woman I married is the woman I want to keep choosing, with or without a contract. Gasps turned to stunned silence. I'm not answering questions tonight. This isn't about damage control. It's about telling the truth. And with that, he stepped away from the mic and walked off stage. past the stunned crowd, past the blinding lights, straight toward her. Siana stepped out from behind the curtain as he approached. The hallway was empty, save for them. That, she said, was unexpected. I told you, he said, breath uneven. I'd show you. Her voice was barely a whisper. You said you loved me. I do. But you don't even know everything about me. Then tell me. Show me who you are. I'm not afraid anymore. She stared at him. So many versions of Aldrich had stood before her in the past. The cold CEO, the arrogant husband, the man made of steel and shadows. But this one, standing in front of her now, he looked unguarded, unmasked, real. She stepped closer. You realize this changes everything. I'm counting on it. She didn't kiss him. She didn't promise forever, but she didn't walk away. And for Aldrich in that moment, it was enough. Later that night, Siana's apartment, Siana had barely set her phone down when it buzzed again. The media storm had exploded. Headlines looping Aldrich's confession on every platform. From contract to confession, Aldrich Leono declares. Love for wife on live broadcast. Real or PR, internet reacts to CEO's romantic bombshell. Even her old college roommate had texted, Girl, you didn't tell me you were living in a Netflix drama. She sank onto the edge of her bed, torn between disbelief and something dangerously close to butterflies. A knock on her door pulled her back. When she opened it, Peter stood there, wearing a hoodie, holding 2 milkshakes. Emergency sugar, he said simply, holding one out. She blinked. You saw the conference. Everyone saw the conference. Even my dad's parrot, probably. She let him in. They sat on her couch in silence for a moment, sipping. So? Peter asked eventually, gently. How do you feel? Siana stared at her drink. Like the ground just shifted beneath me. Peter leaned back. He meant it, didn't he? I think so, she whispered. For once there was no agenda, no strategy. Peter didn't speak for a while. Then he said quietly, He's still not the man I would have chosen for you. I know. But he's becoming the man you might have chosen. That got her. She looked at Peter, eyes soft. You've always been good to me. Because I love you, he said simply, not as a challenge or declaration, just truth. I always have, but I also love seeing you happy, even if it's not with me. Her breath hitched. He smiled, eyes a little sad, and bumped her shoulder. Just don't forget who you are, no matter how shiny that skyline gets. She nodded. I won't. Then another knock. Peter arched a brow. Wow, you're popular. Tonight. Siana opened the door, and there he was. Aldrich. No entourage, no car, no suit. Just him in a gray sweater, looking unsure for once in his life. Hi, he said, voice low. Hi. He spotted Peter over her shoulder. Hey, Peter stood. I was just leaving. Siana touched his arm gently. Thank you, Peter nodded. Take care of her, Richie. Aldrich offered a rare, quiet smile. I'm trying. Peter left. The door clicked shut. Silence settled. I wasn't sure you'd let me in, Aldrich admitted. I wasn't sure I would either, she said. They stood there in the hush of her apartment, stripped of roles, no business masks or headlines between them. Why tonight? She asked. Why say it now? Because I've lied to myself long enough. And I wanted the first time I said it out loud to be in front of the world, so that you'd know it wasn't just for you, it was for me too. She studied him, unsure of what to do with everything she felt. Then quietly, she opened the door wider. He stepped inside, not as a CEO, not as her contracted husband, but as the man who, against all odds, might actually be learning how to love. The next morning, Leono headquarters, Aldrich barely stepped out of the elevator before his father's assistant intercepted him. Mr. Leono wants you in his office. Now. Aldrich gave a silent nod, tightening the cuffs on his shirt. He had expected this. The fallout was inevitable, but for once he didn't regret it. Inside, Lionel Leono was already pacing behind his massive desk. "You've humiliated this family," he barked, slamming a newspaper down. "A live confession of love? Are you a CEO or a soap opera actor?" Aldrich remained calm. "I told the truth. No one pays for truth. They pay for control, image, power. And you've just told the entire world your company was founded on a lie." "It wasn't a lie. It was a contract that turned into something more." His father scoffed. "Do you really believe that changes anything? Do you think she'll stay once this romantic phase fades?" "I don't know," Aldrich said, voice level. "But I'll fight for her anyway." Lionel's gaze narrowed. "Then prepare to lose more than just a wife." Aldrich didn't flinch. "If keeping her costs me your empire, then maybe I need to start building my own." That silenced the room. For a long moment, father and son stared at each other, two lions from different worlds. Lionel finally sat down, seething. "You've changed." Aldrich turned toward the door. "That's the point." That afternoon, Siana's apartment. Siana sat by her window, coffee in hand, sunlight on her face. The world had gone quiet for now, and with the silence came memories. Flashback. 9 months earlier, it was late, a winter night. They had just returned from a corporate gala, both tired and wearing too much formality and not enough warmth. Aldrich had taken off his coat and walked to the kitchen. She had expected him to retreat, like usual. Instead, he'd asked quietly, "Do you want tea or something stronger?" She blinked, surprised. "Tea's fine." They sat in awkward silence at the marble island, two strangers bound by ink and expectations. And then, out of nowhere, he'd asked, "What did you want to be before all this?" She looked up confused. "Before what?" "Before the contract." "Before me." She had smiled sadly. "I wanted to write children's books." "Silly, I know." He'd shaken his head. Not silly. And then, he had done the most unexpected thing of all. He had gone to the study, returned with a leather notebook, and said, "Then write. I'll make sure you have time." He had never brought it up again, never even asked if she wrote in it. But that night, as she sat in bed, she opened the first page and wrote. It was the first time she'd felt seen, even slightly, in the DA. Marriage. Back then, she had pushed the feeling aside. Now it came rushing back like a whisper from her former self. Back to present, a soft knock pulled her from the memory. When she opened the door, there was a package on her doorstep. No note. She carried it inside, heart pounding. Inside the box, the leather notebook, a printed manuscript, The Girl Who Dared to Dream, a handwritten note in Aldrich's unmistakable script. "You said you wanted to write. I sent your pages to a friend in publishing. They want to meet you. Whether or not you give me your heart, I will always give you your dreams." Siana closed the box, hand covering her mouth. He remembered he'd kept it all this time. And just like that, the walls around her heart cracked again. Later that evening, Aldrich's penthouse. The doorbell rang just as Aldrich poured himself a glass of water, not scotch for once. He opened the door, surprised to find Siana standing there. She was holding the box. She didn't speak at first, just looked at him, eyes unreadable. "Can I come in?" she asked. He stepped aside wordlessly. She walked in, placed the box on the counter, and turned to him. "You sent my manuscript to a publisher." "I did. You didn't ask." "I know," he said quietly. "But I figured you might never let yourself believe it was good enough unless someone else said it first." She crossed her arms. "So you decided to play savior?" "No," Aldrich said, voice steady. I decided to be someone who believed in you, even if you don't believe in me." The air tightened between them. She looked down at the manuscript. Her fingers traced the title on the cover. "The Girl Who Dared to Dream." "I forgot I even named it that," she murmured. "I didn't." She met his gaze. And for once, there was no mask, no guarded wall, just quiet, open sincerity. "Why are you doing all this now?" she asked. "What changed?" He stepped closer. "I did, or I'm trying to." Her expression faltered. "That scares me." "Why?" "Because I almost like this version of you, and I'm not sure if he's real or just another phase." He looked down, then back up. "Then stay long enough to find out." She looked at him for a long, breathless moment. Then gently, she nodded once. "Okay. But don't mess this up. Aldrich." "I won't." They stood in fragile silence, a new understanding blooming, raw and still unsteady, but real. The next morning, Lionel Leono's office. Lionel was watching the city from his high-rise when his advisor entered. "There's a way," the advisor said. "We can corner her." Lionel didn't turn around. "How?" "She just got offered a publishing deal. Under Leono Media. We control the imprint." Now Lionel turned slowly. "So if she signs, she'll be under your thumb again." Quietly. "Legally," Lionel's lips curled. "Perfect. Prepare the contract. Make it sweet. Make it look like a gift. And Aldrich?" Lionel's voice turned cold. "He made his choice. Now I'll make mine. Later." That day, Siana's office. Peter burst in again, holding a sleek envelope. "You got an offer." She blinked. "From who?" "Leono Press. Top imprint. Full publishing deal. Advance. Distribution. Everything." Her blood ran cold. Leono Press. As in his family's company, as in his father. She turned the envelope over in her hand, heart pounding. Was this a gift or a trap? She looked out the window toward the city and realized this wasn't just about love anymore. This was war. The moment Aldrich saw the Leono Press logo on the publishing offer sitting on Siana's desk, the one Peter had innocently shown him while teasing her about becoming a famous author, his chest constricted. He recognized the contract formatting. The legal structure. The deliberately generous terms that always came with a leash. He called his father's secretary. "Tell him I'm coming. Now." Lionel Leono's office. Minutes later, his father didn't look surprised when Aldrich stormed in, the contract in hand. "You've read it then," Lionel said calmly. "You offered her a deal under your label?" Aldrich asked, voice sharp. "Why?" Lionel folded his hands behind his back. "Because she has talent, because we publish. Talent, and because I wanted to see what mattered more to you, the girl, or your legacy." Aldrich's jaw clenched. "You've tested me enough." Lionel stepped closer, his voice lowering. "I made you, Aldrich. I shaped your name, your company, your empire. Don't forget that I can also undo it." "But you won't," Aldrich said coldly. "Because this time, I'm not playing your game." Lionel's eyes narrowed. "Then what are you going to do? Walk away from everything for a girl who won't even wear your ring when no one's looking?" Aldrich didn't flinch. "I'll burn it all down before I let you manipulate her." A flicker of surprise, maybe even respect, passed across Lionel's face. "Then you've made your choice," he said quietly. "I have." Meanwhile, Siana's apartment. She sat on her couch, the publishing contract open on the table. The offer was perfect, too perfect. And the deeper she read, the more she saw the strings embedded in the fine print, the rights clause, the marketing lock-ins, the creative control edits hidden in harmless legal language. She was smart enough to see it now, and heartbroken, enough to know where it came from. She closed the folder, her fingers trembling slightly. Was Aldrich part of this? Was he playing a deeper game? A knock at the door startled her. She opened it to find Aldrich standing there, breathless, furious, but eyes only on her. "I didn't know," he said before she could speak. "And I shut it down." She blinked. "You what?" "I tore up the contract. Told my father if he ever tried using you again, I'd walk away from the company." Siana stared, her heart pounding in disbelief. "Why would you do that?" "Because for once I'm not choosing power. I'm choosing you." Tears welled in her eyes unbidden. "You said love is choice, so I need to choose too, not just believe you." Aldrich nodded solemnly. "Then choose me when you're ready." "But know this, I'm not going anywhere." She exhaled, torn between gratitude and fear, longing and the memory of past wounds. And yet, for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like a pawn. She felt like a queen finally reclaiming her own board. Siana sat in front of her laptop, the blank page staring back at her. She hadn't written a single word, not because she didn't know what to say, but because for the first time, her story was writing itself in real life. She replayed Aldrich's words in her mind. "I'll walk away from the company." He meant it. She'd seen it in his eyes. That same man who used to tower like a mountain of control and calculation had offered her the one thing she never asked for: freedom. And that scared her, because now the question wasn't, will he hurt me? It was, do I have the strength to believe he won't? She saved a blank draft, shut the laptop and whispered, "Maybe believing is the braver choice." Meanwhile, Leono Enterprises. Tower Lionel stared at the family portrait on his desk. Aldrich at 12, chin up, hands forced into discipline. His late wife smiling politely. Lionel himself, stiff, guarded. He hated sentimentality, but he hated disobedience more. His advisor entered hesitant. "Sir, Aldrich moved his shares into a blind trust. He's preparing to separate his holdings from the company. He's serious." Lionel didn't look up. "Then it's time we remind him what's at stake." The next morning, office lobby. Siana stepped off the elevator, coffee in hand, already rehearsing the apology she wanted to give Aldrich for how cold she'd been during the last conversation, but she didn't make it past the security desk. "Miss Gomez," the guard said, rising awkwardly. I was told to inform you that your access has been revoked." "What?" she asked, confused. "Revoked by who?" "Mr. Lionel Leono, effective immediately." A beat of silence. Then Peter appeared behind her, brows furrowed. "What the hell is going on?" But Siana was already moving, heart racing, betrayal and fury curling like fire in her chest. Top floor, Aldrich's office. He was in a meeting when she barged in, eyes blazing. The room went silent as she threw a folded paper onto the table. "My badge doesn't work," she said. "Your father made sure of it." Aldrich stared at the paper, then slowly stood. "Leave us," he said quietly to the others. When the room cleared, he stepped closer. "Siana, I swear, I believe you," she said, her voice shaking. "That's not the problem." "Then, what is?" "The problem is, I finally started to feel like I had choices, Aldrich, and your father just reminded me that I don't." His fists clenched. "You do have choices. He doesn't own you. But he owns the system, the board, the building, and right now you're still standing inside it." Silence pulsed between them. Then softly, she added, "So tell me, Aldrich, when are you walking out?" His eyes met hers, the storm of pain and clarity swirling inside. "Not later." Now, the wind was sharp at this hour, tugging gently at Siana's coat as she leaned against the railing, the city lights stretching endlessly before her. She hadn't expected him to come. And yet when she heard the soft clang of the rooftop door, she didn't turn around. She just knew. Aldrich's footsteps were slow, almost unsure, so unlike the man she had first married. "I resigned," he said quietly, stopping beside her. Siana didn't look at him. "I walked out, Sia, from the board, from the empire, from my father's grip." A long silence passed before she whispered, "You really did it." "I said I would," she exhaled slowly, eyes locked on the skyline. "So now what? You expect me to fall into your arms and pretend everything's fixed?" "No," he said softly. "I expect you to hate me a little less." That earned a glance. She turned to him, studying his face. Not the tailored suit or the powerful stance, but the weary lines under his eyes, the way his shoulders no longer squared as defensively. "You're different," she murmured. "I'm trying to be." "Why? Now?" she asked, voice raw. "Why not back when I was crying myself to sleep in that cold penthouse? When I begged you to just see me?" He looked down, ashamed. "Because back then I was too busy being the man my father told me I had to be, and too scared to be the man you needed." Siana turned fully to face him now. "And who are you now?" "I don't know yet," he admitted, "but I know who I want to be. And that version of me starts with you." Her heart squeezed. "I never wanted to ruin you, Aldrich. I just wanted to matter. You do." His voice cracked slightly. "You always did. I was just too blind to see it." The silence that followed was thick, heavy with truths unspoken for too long. Then she asked the question that had haunted her most. "Do you love me?" His eyes locked on hers. "I think I always have," he said, "but I only just learned how to say it." Her breath caught. The wind moved around them like a sigh. Then with a cautious step, she closed the space between them. "Then say it." He didn't hesitate. "I love you, Siana." Her eyes glistened. "Say it again." "I love you." And this time, not because the contract says you should, not because your father expects it, but because I'm me. "I love you," he said again with a trembling smile. "Because you're you, fierce, complicated, maddening, and mine, if you'll have me." She hesitated, then leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. "This doesn't fix everything," she whispered. "I know. There's still hurt, still doubt. I'll wait." "But I believe you," she finally said. "For tonight. I believe you." And in that quiet rooftop moment, surrounded by stars and scars, they stood together, not as enemies, not as strangers bound by a contract, but as two broken people trying to build something real from the ruins. The next evening, a small, hidden bistro, Siana stared at the handwritten menu in front of her, barely reading the items. The candle between them flickered gently, casting soft light across Aldrich's face. "This place is quiet," she murmured, glancing around. "Not what I expected," Aldrich smirked lightly. "You thought I'd rent out a 5-star restaurant and throw a spotlight on your seat?" She raised a brow. "That would be more your style." "True." He sipped his wine, then added, "But tonight's not about style. It's about us. Something real." Siana watched him a beat longer. There was still that sharpness in his eyes, the calculating man who could read a room like a battlefield. But now, she noticed something else too. Effort, nerves, that rare flicker of vulnerability she'd only recently begun to see. "You chose Italian," she said. He nodded. "Your favorite." She blinked. "You remember?" I asked Lily. Siana smiled faintly, amused despite herself. "At least you're using your resources wisely." They ordered food, and for a while the conversation drifted to safer shores, work, art, a terrible Netflix series Lily had forced on her. It felt oddly normal, comfortable, until Aldrich leaned forward, voice softer than before. Do you ever think about how different things could have been if I hadn't been such a cold bastard from the start? She paused, then quietly. All the time. He nodded, accepting the blow without flinching. I think I ruined a lot, Sia. Maybe beyond fixing. She twirled her pasta, avoiding his eyes. Maybe. Or maybe we needed to break first, so we could decide what we actually want. Aldrich stared at her like she was a secret he hadn't solved yet. And what do you want? She looked up, met his gaze. Still figuring that out. But I know I don't want to go back to pretending. If we do this, it has to be with honesty. No power games. No more contracts hanging between us. He nodded, the weight of her words sinking in. Then let's end it. Siana blinked. End it? He reached into his coat, pulled out the original marriage contract, the one signed with pen and pressure and boardroom agendas. Without drama, he slid it across the table toward her. I had legal voids drawn up. It's over. Unless you decide otherwise. She stared at it. That contract had once felt like chains around her heart. Now it sat between them like a broken key. You'd really let me walk away? She asked. Voice low. If that's what makes you happy. Yes, he said. She didn't touch it. Instead, she leaned back and looked out the window. The street outside was bathed in soft golden light, and somewhere in the distance a violin played. I don't want to be someone you fight for just to win, she said. I want to be someone you fight with. Side by side. Aldrich reached. Across the table, fingers brushing hers. Then don't walk away, he whispered. Stay. Let's build this from scratch. Not because we have to, but because we choose to. She looked down at their hands, at the subtle warmth of skin on skin. I'll stay, she said at last, but no guarantees. This isn't a fairy tale. No, he agreed. It's better. It's real. Back at Siana's apartment that night, he didn't follow her in. He just walked her to the door like any other man on a first date. She turned to him, keys in hand. Thank you for not pushing. I'm learning, he said, voice rough with emotion. She leaned in and pressed a gentle kiss to his cheek. Good night, Aldrich. He watched her go, a soft smile playing on his lips, not of victory, but of hope. And for the first time in a long time, Siana walked into her apartment without the weight of confusion, just the hum of possibility. Scene. The Leono estate, study room. The study smelled like old leather and polished control. Aldrich stood tall, hands in his pockets, eyes fixed on the man behind the desk. His father, Lionel Leono, steel gray hair, sharper eyes. You asked for me, Aldrich said, voice calm, almost too calm. Lionel didn't look up from the filing, his hand. I heard about the merger. You killed it. I did. You let emotion derail a billion-dollar opportunity? No. Aldrich stepped closer. I let you derail me for too long. I won't do it anymore. Lionel finally looked up, mouth twisting into something resembling a smirk. You think you're free because you turned down one deal? I think I'm becoming free, Aldrich said, and that scares the hell out of you. Lionel stood, every inch the tycoon he'd built himself into. Everything you have, this company, that penthouse, your reputation, I built that for you. You built it for yourself, Aldrich snapped. I just wore the suit. Silence. Then Lionel stepped closer, gaze cold. This woman, Siana, she's made you soft. No, Aldrich said. She's made me honest. For once I want to be a man she can choose, not one she was forced to marry to seal a deal. His father scoffed. And what about the board, the investors? They don't care about honesty. They care about results. I'll give them results, but on my terms. Lionel studied him a long moment. You really plan to make her your partner? In life and business? Aldrich nodded. Yes, and I don't need your blessing. He turned to leave. Lionel's voice stopped him. If you walk out now, I won't protect you next time. Aldrich didn't even flinch. Good. I'm done hiding behind you. He walked out, the door clicking shut like the final lock breaking. Scene: Siana's apartment, later that night. She sat curled up on her couch, flipping through a design catalog for the upcoming charity gala. Her phone buzzed, a message from Aldrich. Cut the strings today, the puppet is finally free. A small smile tugged at her lips. Just then, a knock on her door. She opened it to find Peter, holding 2 containers of Thai food and wearing his heart in his eyes. I figured. You didn't eat, she laughed softly. You figured right. They sat on the floor, eating from cartons like they used to back in college, before contracts, boardrooms, and cold-hearted CEOs. So, Peter said between bites, you and Mr. Tall Broody Hot are talking again? She didn't answer. Right away. Just looked down at her noodles. Sia, he said gently. I just want you to be happy, but I need to ask something. She met his eyes. Do you still see me? Only as your friend. The words hit her harder than expected. She placed her food down. Peter, you've always been my constant, my safe place. That's not the same as being wanted. She flinched slightly. You're right. He nodded, pain flickering across his features. So what now? I don't know, she whispered. A part of me still doesn't trust Aldrich, but another part wants to believe him. Peter stood, picking up the empty containers. Just promise me one thing, Sia. Anything. Don't settle for half love just because it's familiar. She watched him leave, and suddenly, the apartment felt too quiet. Scene: Aldrich's penthouse. Midnight. Aldrich stood on the balcony, wind tugging at his sleeves, scotch untouched on the table beside him. He looked out at the skyline, the contract. Voided, his father disarmed, but 1,000 questions still heavy in his chest. He'd won a battle. But could he win her heart without destroying what was left of it? Behind him, his phone buzzed. Siana, do you still have that rooftop candlelight idea? I might be free tomorrow. He smiled. Not victory, not certainty, but maybe, just maybe. A beginning. Aldrich's penthouse, rooftop terrace, the Yi. Rooftop had been transformed. Soft golden lights framed the edges of the terrace. Candles flickered between small, elegant arrangements of white lilies and lavender. Siana's favorites. A table for 2 stood in the center, cloaked in cream linen with silver cutlery and crystal glasses glinting under the city's night sky. Siana stepped out of the elevator, heels clicking softly against the stone floor. She wore a midnight blue dress, simple and sleek, her hair falling around her shoulders in waves. Aldrich stood waiting in a dark button-down, sleeves rolled, no tie, no armor. He turned as she approached. For a moment he said nothing, just looked at her like she was something rare, something impossible. You remembered the lilies, she said, arms folded loosely. I remember everything, he replied, voice low. I just never showed it. She looked away, unsettled by the sincerity in his eyes. They sat. The food was already served, grilled salmon, her favorite sparkling water, and a small chocolate souffle for dessert. So, she said after a long silence, this is your grand gesture. No, he said. This is me asking you to dinner, not as a CEO, not as your contract husband. Just as a man who's trying to fix what he broke. She gave a small, wry smile. You think dinner and fairy lights can fix years of silence and resentment? No, he said quietly. But it's a start. The candles flickered between them, casting dancing shadows on their faces. I read the file, she said suddenly. About your childhood. The therapists, the transfers, the incident at the boarding school. Aldrich stilled. I wasn't digging, she added softly. Your father sent it. As leverage. Of course he did, Aldrich thought bitterly. And what did you think when you read it? I thought it explained a lot. She looked at him now, fully. The way you control things, the way you detach. You were punished for needing love, so you stopped needing. A muscle in his jaw tightened. Until you. Siana's expression faltered. Pain mingled with disbelief. You can't just say things like that, Aldrich. I know. He leaned forward slightly. I'm not trying to win you with words. I'm just trying to be honest. For once. She looked down at her glass, voice softer. Do you ever regret the contract? Every day, he said without hesitation. Not because I married you, but because I made you doubt that it meant anything to me. She stared at him for a long moment, emotions tugging in every direction. Do you think we could have worked without it? I don't know, he said honestly. But I want to find out. Siana stood, walking to the edge of the rooftop. The breeze caught her dress, and she closed her eyes for a moment. Aldrich joined her slowly, standing beside her. I'm scared, she admitted, of believing you, of wanting something real and falling flat on my face again. He didn't touch her, didn't try to close the space. You're allowed to be scared, he said, but I'll be here, however long it takes. She turned to him then, eyes glassy with unshed emotion. I'm not promising anything, Aldrich. He nodded. I'm not asking you to. A beat passed. Just one thing, she said. Anything. No more orders. No more power plays. If we do this, I come in equal. He extended his hand, not to pull her close, but simply to offer it. Open, willing, then we start there. And for the first time in what felt like forever, she took it. Not because she was trapped, not because of duty, but because somewhere, in the chaos of everything they'd been, there was still something worth reaching for. Something that felt a lot like hope. Next morning, marketing department office. Peter leaned against the edge of Siana's desk, twirling a pen absently between his fingers. His usual lightness was dimmed, something thoughtful clouding his eyes. Siana arrived a few minutes later, coffee in hand and a softness in her step. A subtle glow hung around her, the kind that doesn't come from rest, but from something warmer. Peter saw it instantly. You're either dangerously well caffeinated or something happened, he said, trying for a teasing tone. She looked at him, startled, like she'd forgotten other people existed in the world. What? Oh, sorry. I was just... She trailed off. Thinking about someone with a rooftop terrace and a candle budget? He asked, the joke light, but his eyes searching. Siana sat down, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. It was just dinner, Peter. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Right, just dinner. A long pause stretched between them, the kind that usually didn't exist. Peter cleared his throat. Sia, I need to ask you something, and I want the truth. She looked up wary. Are you falling back in love with him? The question was sharp, honest, necessary. Siana didn't answer immediately. Her fingers tightened around the paper cup. I don't know. Okay, Peter said softly. That's fair. But I see someone different in him, or maybe someone he always was, underneath all the power games and silence. Peter nodded, then leaned closer. And do you see you in that picture, Sia? Not just the version he's trying to win, but the whole you. Dreams, flaws, stubborn streak and all. That stopped her. I think he's trying to, she admitted. For the first time, Peter smiled again. A little sadder this time. Then I hope he gets it right, because if he breaks you again. He leaned in just a little more. I won't forgive him. She blinked, heart twisting. Peter. I know. He straightened. I'm not saying this to guilt you. I just want you to know I was never standing in his shadow. I stood next to you. That's all I ever wanted. Siana's throat tightened. You've always been good to me. I don't want to be just good to you, he said softly. But I'll take what you're willing to give. There was no bitterness in his voice. Just a quiet resignation. A man choosing dignity over desperation. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. Text from Aldrich. Can we talk before the meeting? 10 minutes. Just us. Peter glanced at the screen, then stepped back. That your next challenge? She nodded, eyes conflicted. Then go. But don't forget what I said. You owe him nothing he hasn't earned. As Siana walked away, Peter leaned back against her desk, exhaling slowly. He didn't cry, didn't rage, but his heart ached with that unique pain of watching someone choose a door and knowing it might close forever behind them. Scene, Aldrich's office. Moments later, Siana stepped inside. Aldrich was at the window again, the skyline his habitual escape. He turned when she entered, and this time he smiled. A real one, small, unguarded. Thank you for last night. You're welcome, she said. He gestured toward a small tray. I had breakfast sent up, in case you wanted to talk. Do you? Raised a brow. Talk, not negotiate? He smirked. I'm learning. They sat. For a while they just sipped coffee, comfortable in the silence. Then he said, There's something I need to show you. He reached into the drawer and pulled out a thin envelope, setting it in front of her. Siana frowned. What's this? My resignation letter. Her heart skipped. What? I wrote it the day after you left the first time, he said, quietly. Didn't file it. Couldn't. But I was ready to walk away from everything. The company, the board, the money. If it meant I could start over and find a way back to you. She stared at the envelope. It looked so ordinary, but it held the weight of everything she had once begged him to understand. I didn't need you to leave everything, she whispered. I needed you to choose me alongside it. I know that now, he said, and I'm still choosing. She looked at him, not the man she married out of obligation, but the one trying every day to become something worthy of love and the. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was standing alone. Later that night, Aldrich's penthouse. The city buzzed below, all flickering lights and distant horns, but Aldrich sat in stillness. He hadn't turned on the lights. Just the quiet hum of a jazz record playing low in the background, a glass of untouched whiskey beside him. In his hand was a worn photograph, frayed edges, black and white. A boy with cold eyes standing beside a man with a sharper smile. His father. A knock echoed in the silence. He didn't respond, just muttered, "Come in." The door creaked open. It was Lily. You okay? She asked gently, stepping in with none of her usual sass. Do I look it? No, she said honestly. You look like someone who just dug up an old ghost. He didn't answer. She walked over, sat opposite him on the couch, glanced at the photo. Is that you? He nodded. 9 years old, the day I inherited the family legacy. Lily tilted her head. You don't look happy. I wasn't. That was the day my father told me love is a weakness, that if I ever wanted to survive in our world, I'd need to sacrifice softness, empathy. He said emotions were liabilities, tools at best. Lily was silent. Aldrich continued, voice low. He said my mother ruined him, that she made him feel, and that cost him everything. So he raised me like a soldier. No room for tears. No space for dreams. Your mother? Lily asked gently. She left when I was 10, he said. Couldn't take the coldness anymore. I remember standing at the top of the stairs, listening to them fight. She said, "You're turning him into you, into something hollow." And did he? Lily asked. I thought he did, Aldrich said. Until Siana. The name lingered like an exhale. She was the first person who ever looked at me and didn't flinch, who challenged me, saw through the suit, the arrogance, the armor. And I hated it, because it made me feel like that little boy again, the one I'd been told to bury. Lily reached out and touched his hand. "You don't have to be him, Aldrich." "I know that now," he whispered. "You still have time to fix this." He looked at her. "Do you really think I can?" Lily smiled softly. "That girl still looks at you like she wants to believe you. That's more than most people ever get. Just don't waste it again." He didn't speak. He didn't need to, because in his silence, something shifted. Not the cold calculation he was raised with, but the raw, uncertain heart of a man who wanted more than survival. He wanted redemption. Scene, the next day. Leono Enterprises executive Flora Siana stood outside the conference room, nerves tight in her chest. Inside, Aldrich's father waited. She hadn't seen him since the last meeting, but she knew this was long overdue. Aldrich had asked her not to come alone. She'd said she could handle it, and she meant it. She opened the door. Mr. Leono looked up from his seat, steepling his fingers. "Ah, Mrs. Leono? Or should I say temporary heiress?" Siana smiled, cool and steady. "Good morning, Mr. Leono." He gestured for her to sit. She didn't. Instead, she placed a folder on the table. "What's this?" "A proposal," she said, "for the marketing restructure, the one Aldrich and I have been developing." He opened it, scanning the pages. "Impressive. Thank you. But that doesn't answer the real question," he said, closing the folder. "Are you still playing house with my son? Or are you finally ready to admit this marriage was a convenient transaction?" She didn't flinch. "It was a transaction. At first. And now?" She met his gaze head on. "Now, it's none of your business." His eyes narrowed. "Excuse me." Siana stepped closer. "You tried to use me to control Aldrich, and maybe I let you, for a while. But you can't manipulate me into leaving or staying, not anymore. Is that a threat?" "No," she said calmly. "It's a fact." He leaned back, studying her. "You've changed." "No. You just never looked past your own ambitions long enough to see who I was." Just then the door opened. Aldrich entered, eyes flicking between them. "Am I interrupting?" Siana smiled. "Not at all. We were just finishing." Aldrich raised a brow, surprised at the calm tension in the air. His father didn't speak, just looked between them, then nodded once. "Very well. Let's see how long this facade holds." As he left the room, Aldrich turned to her, impressed. "What did you say to him?" "Nothing he didn't deserve," she said, then added, "I told him the truth." Aldrich smiled, and for the first time, he wasn't the one protecting her. She was standing for herself, and damn if he didn't fall a little more in love with her for it.